The observation dome of Research Station Theta-7 hummed with the quiet efficiency of 100 monitoring systems, each one tracking the wildlife of Vareth Prime with mechanical precision. Dr. Mara Lin stood before the reinforced transparent barrier, her dark eyes fixed on the creature pacing within the containment habitat beyond. Kor was magnificent, even as a juvenile. His obsidian scales caught the artificial sunlight, refracting it into fragments of deep purple and midnight blue. 6 limbs propelled his muscular frame with predatory grace, while twin rows of crystalline spikes ran along his spine, nature's warning to anything foolish enough to challenge a Varathian apex predator. His species had dominated this world's food chain for millions of years, and it showed in every deliberate movement. Dr. Lin, I must insist this is madness, Commander Thex's translator crackled. The Centaurian officer's 4 eyes blinked in asynchronous disapproval. The juvenile has already injured 3 handlers. Varathian predators cannot be domesticated, socialized, or reasoned with. Their neural structure lacks the capacity for what? Mara interrupted, not taking her eyes off Kor. For friendship? For trust? She smiled, watching the cub scratch vigorously at the barrier with talons that could shred durasteel given time. Commander, humanity has been befriending predators since we lived in caves. It's practically our species' superpower. Thex's chromatophores shifted to a deep orange, the Centaurian equivalent of exasperation. Humans befriended canines over thousands of generations of selective breeding. This creature's ancestors were ambush hunters that crushed prey with jaws capable of generating 20,000 newtons of force. Last week, Kor nearly severed Dr. Vex's manipulator appendage. Vex approached him like prey, Mara countered, finally turning to face the commander. Cautious, fearful, projecting vulnerability. Predators respond to confidence. She moved toward the containment entry port, her fingers dancing across the control panel. Dr. Lin, Mara. Dr. Lin, Thex repeated firmly. If you enter that habitat, galactic research protocols require me to have 4 armed personnel standing by with neural disruptors. Mara paused, considering. 2 personnel, non-lethal restraints only, and they stay outside unless I specifically call for help. She didn't wait for confirmation before cycling. Through the airlock, the atmosphere, inside the habitat was thick with the loamy, scent of Vareth Prime's native soil. Kor's head snapped toward her immediately, his triple-slit pupils contracting to focus on the intruder. The cub was smaller than an adult, only about the size of an earth lion, but his posture was pure predator. Ears flat, spikes raised, a low rumble emanating from somewhere deep in his chest. Most sentient species would have retreated. Most would have recognized the signals of an apex predator preparing to attack. But Mara had grown up with cats, dogs, and one particularly temperamental raccoon that had adopted her family's garage. She knew the language of teeth and claws, of dominance displays and testing boundaries. "Hey there, beautiful," she said softly, keeping her voice light and unconcerned. She didn't crouch, that would signal weakness. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the ground, making herself smaller without cowering, present without threatening. Kor's rumble intensified. He took 3 deliberate steps toward her, claws clicking against the synthetic stone floor. Every instinct screamed danger, but Mara had learned long ago that instinct was just evolution's first draft. Humans had been editing that manuscript for millennia. The cub lunged. It wasn't a full attack, but a test, jaws snapping toward her outstretched hand with enough force to break bones if they connected. But Mara had been expecting it. She pulled her hand back just inches, not in fear but in playful evasion, and laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not a dismissive laugh, a genuine, delighted laugh that bubbled up from somewhere deep and authentic. Kor froze mid-strike, his massive head tilting at an angle that would have been comical if he weren't capable of bisecting her with one casual swipe. His rumble stuttered, broke, reformed into something that might have been confusion. Mara laughed again, softer this time, and extended her hand once more. "Oh, you're all bluster, aren't you? Big scary predator." She kept her tone affectionate, teasing, the way she'd spoken to every half-feral creature she'd ever coaxed into trust. Kor's spikes lowered fractionally. He sniffed toward her hand, his broad nostrils flaring. Then, with deliberate slowness, he opened his jaws again. Outside the habitat, she heard the distinct sound of weapons charging. But Mara didn't flinch. She kept her hand steady, kept that small smile on her face. Kor's teeth touched her skin. Not biting, testing. His tongue, surprisingly rough like sandpaper made of diamonds, rasped against her palm. Then, impossibly, his massive head pressed forward, and he nuzzled her hand with the same gesture a house cat might offer. The rumble returned, but transformed. Not a growl, a purr, deep and resonant enough to vibrate through Mara's bones. "That's it," she whispered, her other hand rising slowly to scratch beneath his jaw. "You're not a monster. Just a baby who needed someone to speak your language." Through the observation window, Commander Thex watched in stunned silence as the human xenobiologist, small, soft-skinned, lacking any natural weapons, sat peacefully while a juvenile apex predator sprawled across her lap like an oversized puppy. "Impossible," Thex muttered. "The neural structures aren't everything," the station's AI interjected helpfully. "Dr. Lin's hypothesis appears correct. The human capacity for laughter, for projecting non-threatening joy in the face of danger, creates a novel social signal. Kor's brain chemistry is showing elevated oxytocin analogs. He's bonding." Inside the habitat, Mara continued scratching behind Kor's ears, if the swept-back sensor ridges could be called ears, while the predator cub made sounds somewhere between a purr and a chirp. When she finally stood to leave an hour later, Kor followed her to the airlock, pressing his snout against the barrier as she departed. "Same time tomorrow?" she asked, meeting his alien gaze. Kor's answering chirp echoed through the containment area. As Mara exited, she found Commander Thex waiting, all four eyes blinking in something that might have been respect. "How did you know that would work?" Mara grinned, wiping predator saliva from her hands. "Because humans have been doing this for thousands of years, Commander. We take the dangerous, the deadly, the absolutely should not be trusted, and we say, 'Want to be friends?' And somehow," she glanced back at Kor, who was now doing what could only be described as a happy dance. "Somehow the universe keeps saying yes." Behind them, the galaxy's most feared juvenile predator continued purring, having learned that perhaps laughter was indeed a universal language, and that affection, like evolution, could take the most surprising forms.